Thanks for doing this, Federica. It's an honor to be able to sit down and talk with you. So thanks again for joining the Rise and Above podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, David. I'm really excited.
Absolutely. So kind of getting into you a little bit, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Are you from the Lansing area? Where were you born and raised at?
Oh, well, you should guess from my accent, I'm not really a local. I'm from Rome, Italy. I came to the US 17 years ago. And I traveled the world before coming here because of my education and my job. I was fortunate to get my PhD in Italy, and then I moved to Oxford, England for a few years before going to Canada, Saskatchewan, and then I moved to warmer climates, and I got to Michigan.
Warmer climate.
Warmer climates. It's been a beautiful experience, and I love Michigan, and I love Michigan State.
Very cool. How long have you taught at Michigan State?
So it's 17 years. 17
Wow.
years. Yes, long time. Don't make me think about it.
What has that experience been like for you?
It's been really always exciting. And that's also what has kept me going and staying in this place. I had opportunity to move, but I love it because Michigan State gives you the opportunity to grow and also to explore not only fundamental research as we do in our lab, but it gives you the opportunity to expand your horizons to applied research. So for me, it's been always intellectually challenging and really rewarding to work for an institution like this one.
That's very awesome. And I'm sure as far as like research, it's extremely important for a university to be supportive of all the resources that you need.
Yes, but this university also produces fantastic students. Really, what I found about these students is that they are very curious. They want to know more. They challenge, and I have a lab that is full of Michigan State students, and they're really proud to be a Michigan State, and so that makes a difference because they come with energy, and that energy is helpful for everybody in the lab, including myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can kind of feed off of each other, and if they're excited about what they do, then you're excited about what you're doing, and it just kind of helps the whole process evolve, right?
Exactly. You just got it, David. That's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, that's amazing. That really is. And I don't know, that just makes me happy knowing that, like I had mentioned prior, like MSU is right there. So it's cool to see the excitement with the students and the faculty and the effort that they're putting in to help progress society and just make it a better place.
Absolutely.
Now, what got you into first of all, what did you study when you went to college? What did you get your PhD in?
So I got my PhD in plant, cell, and molecular biology. What fascinated me as a young student was to understand how the cell works, so the unit of an organism, how does it work and how does it connect with the external environment. And so I was really fortunate because my mentor at that time put me in front of a microscope, and she showed me some bacterial cells that were beautiful to look at. They were screaming with light at me. They were really like so fascinating to look at. And so I said, this is really what I want to do. I want to understand the inner workings of the cell. But I just didn't want to have a basic understanding at the, say, visual level. I wanted to understand the mechanisms, what make a cell. And so for this, I was really interested in developing knowledge and tools of molecular biology that would allow me to understand in depth how cells work and how we can modify them. And then as my let's say experience continued to grow, I decided to start working with plants. And the reason why I love to do that is that there is no blood involved. It's easier to work with them. Also, the idea is that, you know, as our population grow, we will need more and more food, and we will need plants to be smarter with the soil and the nutrients that we have available. And so I decided that plants were something that was really intriguing and helpful for the humanity broadly. So this is how I got into plants.
That's very interesting. So you literally seen something one day, you're like, I want to study this for
Yes.
and I want to know everything I can possibly know about it.
Exactly. And that's what drives me to Michigan State every morning. There is no a morning that is similar to another one. Every day is different. And this is thanks to the nature of research and discovery. Every day there is something new that we can learn.
How has technology changed? As like when you started and as opposed to now, how has technology changed research?
So technology has changed enormously. I actually did my dissertation using a Commodore 64 that many people would not even know what I'm talking about. So, you know, the Mac was just coming to light, and now we have the supercomputers. But, you know, also when I started confocal microscopy, so advanced microscopy was something extremely new, and now is routine in the lab. Now we can query the DNA, and we can find out how one plant is different at the DNA level from a plant of the same species. So we can really learn things that it wasn't not even imaginable when I graduated. And it's been an exponential growth. And I think many people like me took advantage of this growth. We didn't let it go, and thanks to the fact that we continue to work with really young and energetic people, they actually bring these novelties to the lab. They actually make me aware there's something new that we can use. And I think this partnership is helping a lot, helping me to grow and help them understand where and when to use it in the most profitable way.
Absolutely. Now, when how long ago did this whole NASA partnership come about, and how did that come about?
It came about 10 years ago, almost 11 actually. So in 2012, NASA made a call for ground research and flight research. So it was a combined call to carry out experiments in the lab, but also send samples to the International Space Station, the ISS. And so I was fascinated by the idea to explore new frontiers. And although this was not the first call of NASA for this kind of research, was really something that I felt I was now in a position to pursue. You know, as a researcher, you have to build some kind of confidence in your data, in your tools, to then start exploring new frontiers. And you always have to be prepared and not be underprepared, and then work with this important organization. So at that point in my career, I felt that I could move to the next step. And so I applied to NASA. I was successful. They gave me a grant to get started. And we had our first flight to send samples to the ISS. That was successful. And then NASA had a subsequent call, and I applied, and I was successful again in receiving money to send a second set of samples to them. And so it's been wonderful to work with them. But then they got this new call for the Artemis flight, and I felt that that was the coolest thing. So I mean, sending samples around the moon, it was just mind-blowing. And so I thought, yeah, I want to do that. And this is how my Artemis mission with them started. And we started in 2018, working with them in 2018.
Now, when you say that the first and second were successful, what do you mean by that?
So we had sent seeds to the International Space Station, and the astronauts let these seeds germinate on the station, and then block the seedlings, the development of the seedlings using so-called fixative, something that blocks everything. So then the seedlings could be sent back to us, and we could analyze them. And we analyzed their gene expression, so the expression of the makeup of the nuclear information of the seedlings, to see how they responded to space flight, and so to the lack of gravity, to radiation, so to a number of variables. And we sent seeds that were wild types, so not modified, and seeds that were modified, so that they lacked specific stress responses. They couldn't activate some stress responses. And we wanted to see what would happen in space to these two different backgrounds. The plant that we sent to space is a model plant species that is called Arabidopsis thaliana. It is very common in lab research and is considered a model because many plants have similar responses that we can observe in Arabidopsis. And so it's very helpful to study this plant for comparison with many other plant species.
What kind of information did you guys take away studying those seeds when they came back from space?
So from those two missions, we learned that plants activate stress responses that are not usually activated on Earth. So this is very important because plants have not evolved to live and survive in space. And moving to space is our next frontier as humanity, right? So understanding how plants respond to space is fundamental to start making a sustainable environment in space. So now understanding which responses are activated in space is important, but also innovative, because we can then pick apart these responses and maybe potentiate them, make them stronger, so plants can be equipped to survive space. So this is how we came back with the kind of information that we came back with.
What kind of environment is needed to be able to grow plants in space?
So a minimum, of course, you need light and water. And you will think that those are the easiest things to establish. And when you think about it, maybe the most challenging things actually to obtain. So light is something that can be put in a closed environment, but then you limit by space, right? If you want to make something sustainable, you need a large amount of space to grow your crops, to grow your plants. So light can be a limiting factor. Air, of course, is a limiting factor too. But when you think about it, while that can be supplied, water can become an issue, because due to the lack of gravity, it's very difficult to water plants because water doesn't go down, right? It goes everywhere. So you have to develop the technology to water plants. And NASA is working with very bright engineers and biologists and other scientists to establish these self-contained environments to grow plants in space.
How long do you think, how far away are we from being able to grow plants fully in space, would you say?
I cannot put a date on that, but just this year, a beautiful study came about that you can grow the seeds of Arabidopsis, the plant that I was telling you, on lunar soil, on lunar regolith. Plants don't do too well, but you can do it. So the scientists that did the experiment received the lunar soil or lunar regolith from previous Apollo flights, and they were able to show that plants can grow on that kind of medium, on that kind of soil. Wow. So I don't want to say that we are not far, but there are indications that we can possibly colonize also that kind of surface for growing plants.
Now, the latest mission with NASA, did you send the same plant seeds back to space?
Yes, we sent the same species, wild type, but also with mutations that would alter the quantities of amino acids. So amino acids make proteins, so make really the building bodies of proteins, which are so important for the plant development, but also for human and animal development and growth. So we know that radiations in space can affect the makeup of amino acids. So what we wanted to see is if we send, we wanted to test what would be the response of these seeds to space. So we equipped them with more amino acids with the idea that by coming back from space, these plants that would have more amino acids would be better equipped to survive space flight.
And you guys received those back, didn't you?
Yes, we received them in our lab a couple of weeks ago, and they came in a special container. We were all very excited to get them. We unpacked the vials that contain the seeds, and luckily everything was in good shape. You know, the Orion capsule underwent a big splashdown, and yet everything was well preserved. No breakage, no contamination of seeds, and we already growing the seeds on. You know, we germinated the seeds, and we are now looking at the plants. So the experiments are ongoing.
Very cool. That's cool. What do you think this research means for us now and for the future?
Well, I think it really strengthens the idea that everything is possible. You know, sending seeds now to the lunar orbit says, yes, we can reach new frontiers, and now we can start doing some hypothesis-driven research to try to establish life outside planet Earth.
I could imagine that when you started your career, you probably never imagined that we would be this far in
No.
research, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I was born the year that the man landed on the moon. So now for me, this means a lot. And so I can tell you personally, now I wasn't even thinking that my research would have been going that far. And I'm proud to say that we made history because we sent now seeds that far. I'm really proud, but also very grateful that I was given the opportunity to do so.
I mean, that's quite a significant thing to accomplish in your life.
Yes.
To be able to further human existence, possibly. I mean, at some point, if something catastrophic ever happens to Earth, we have the research and the knowledge available to possibly grow something in space.
It's a beginning. It's definitely a beginning. It's a big step, And I'm so happy that there are obviously visionary people that are well above me in pay grade and in smartness, that really are looking forward and looking to the interest of people on this planet. And this is why we exploring new frontiers.
Now, have you received any criticism from anybody regarding like growing food in space or growing biology in space?
No, so far I received only very supportive comments and really support in any way. I think people are genuinely excited by the opportunities. I haven't heard anything negative back, and I, I am so blessed about it, because, as you know, to any action, there is always an opposite reaction, right? And that's good, because it stimulates your thinking. So far, so good. Which though also means that I think people have need time to react to what is happening. So let's see what our results bring us, and then I think that the discussions are open, and there will be continue to be a conversation on how we can always improve. I think that would be where really the input will be constructed, to have input from the community as we move along.
I could imagine that being one of your students and being a part of something so significant would be like a motivating factor for me, and wanting to just like study as hard as I can and research as much as I can. Is that true for your students?
Maybe we should ask them, but my lab, I'm so blessed, is full of students, students that want to come and work with me and with other people in the lab. And I can tell you that I have so many requests of people that want to work in my lab, and it's beautiful. And the request of students from high school to undergrads here at Michigan State and beyond Michigan State. So I feel I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate.
Do you think this research kind of puts Michigan State on the map a little bit as far as being one of the leading schools in maybe the biology field?
And we are already on the map, right? Thanks to Leonardo DiCaprio. I think everything helps, but Michigan State is already a powerhouse for plant research and research in general. I just feel I contributed a bit more to an already high stature of this beautiful campus.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What I had a question. I can't remember what it was now. What is the most significant thing that you've witnessed during your career as a biologist, researcher?
Well, I have witnessed so many, but at least I can tell you in maybe in my laboratory. That's what you mean, or you mean more broadly?
I guess however you would like to explain that. What is the most significant or most impactful thing you've witnessed in your career?
In general, I can say, so I don't think it's just one event, but in general, throughout the years, what I found that maybe has been the most significant thing is our ability as scientists to change the makeup of organisms like plants, and being able to direct plants to be more productive, more stress resistant. So for me, maybe that has been a major milestone that science and scientists have achieved. And the reason why I don't want to point that to a single event is that this ability has been linked to the work of so many people together, and continues to be improved over time. And sometimes we give it for granted. But I think our ability to have understood the plant genome and being able to make use of it is helping humanity as a whole by making plants more productive and producing more food, medicines also for the humanity. So I think I would think that is a major game changer.
I guess like along those same lines, aside from working on the project with NASA and furthering science in space, what else are you guys working on to kind of improve plant life here on Earth? I mean, obviously you just mentioned like medicine and sustainability a little bit.
Right. So in our lab, we are working on making plants more productive in the bioenergy economy. So we're trying to make sure that plants can produce basic chemicals that can help with their productivity in terms of bioenergy. So plants are a sustainable resource of biomaterials that can be converted to bioenergy and biofuels. And so we are equipping plants with more of those basic chemicals that can make them more and more tailored towards producing biofuels. And in parallel to that, we also testing and developing plants that can be more resistant to stress. And so they can, receive less input, human input in withstanding the harsh environment of the field. So that's what we're doing. We're making plants that are more productive per acre of land in different conditions of environmental conditions.
Such as what?
So for example, we're making plants that are bigger in general, so they actually have more biomass yield, making some modifications to their surface. But also we're making plants that are more resistant to drought stress and heat stress.
Wow, that's really cool.
It is.
Now, how have you guys worked with any local like farmers in their crops or anything like that?
So some of this work is proprietary, and we have patented that thanks to MSU. And now a company out in California is employing some of our traits into the field in plants like sorghum and alfalfa. So the results so far look very positive, but we're doing field trials and so field testing, and those take a long time, as you can imagine, especially when you grow crops that have a relatively slow pace of growth. But things are going well, are very promising, so we're hoping for the best.
Are plants harder to grow today than they ever have been because of like maybe like pollution and just us growing our infrastructure here on Earth? Is it more difficult? Are the stress factors higher?
Well, I grew up in a farm, and I can tell you that seeing now how technology has evolved, maybe growing plants from a technological standpoint it's easier because we can predict, for example, how much fertilizer they need or how much water they may need in some fields. What is growing, I think, though, more difficult is actually the sudden changes in temperature, extreme weather conditions that we're experiencing because of the climate change. So, so it depends how you want to talk about easy or difficult. I think for plants is becoming more challenging to grow because of limitations due to climate change that for sure they're affecting plants and crop yield.
Yeah, I mean, we can see it here in Michigan. You mentioned how warm it is here. And like usually I remember like when I was a kid, we had winters. Like we would have snow all winter long. And it's like it's so weird because now we have like one snowfall and then it melts and then it's kind of cold and rainy and wet, but no snow. So
Is yeah, some people may like it, but then that's not what plants and crops, at least in this region, have been used to, and so now they have to adapt to this new environment, and that is difficult, right? It is really difficult.
now one thing I guess I was kind of interested in asking you about, do you know anything about the communication between plants?
Um, it's not really my area, so I most likely I know as much as any other person on the street. So um, not really. I wouldn't like to communicate intelligently about it. I'm sorry. I want to
No,
be totally honest on that.
that's okay. That was a random question that I just had, and but I think it would be interesting to learn about the communication that plants have with each other. Now, let's see here. I don't remember. I don't have any. I like last night, like spent all evening writing these questions. I'm like, I'm talking to a professor at MSU. I need to have all these questions, and yeah, I think I've gone through most of my questions. But um, looking back at your career, would you say that this NASA thing is probably one of the most significant things you've been involved in, or most
It's
most exciting?
definitely a huge highlight of, of my career, but also as a human being. Being able to witness things like that in a lifetime is fantastic, right? I think when one thinks about what happened during my lifetime, and as I told you, I was actually the moon landing was a few months before my actually birth, so I didn't witness or watched anything like that. But now sending plants around the moon for me is of historical significance because it's a really big step forward. And so, although that's something that was done with my lab, I would say, even if I didn't do it, there would be a highly significant step forward. So, I would say yes, this flight to with NASA has been a big highlight, but not just because we did it in general.
That's actually a really good point. I didn't even think about that, but how like you were born when we landed on the moon, and then in your lifetime, now you're a part of a process of growing something on the moon. Like that is so significant and amazing.
Yes, yes. So it's a big step in that direction. Let's see what comes next. Really, at this point, I think that just imagination is the only limitation here. We can do what we want, and I think that's really the driving principle.
Now, kind of going off into imagination land, in your lifetime or in during your career, what would you like to see advance the most? What is the most significant thing you would like to see happen?
Um, I would love to see um, the climate to go back to more sustainable opportunities. And with that, I would like to see a more clean energy frontiers being explored and invested upon. And I really would love to see that we're going to have our first settlement on Mars. That would be fantastic. I really hope that that's going to happen.
Would do you think you would ever go to Mars?
Not personally, because I think they would not accept old guys like me for the flight, but maybe, maybe my grandchildren would. So,
That's amazing. Do you have grandchildren?
no, not only three teenagers. So, um, I don't know how far I am from grandchildren, but teenagers for now. So I hope I can wait another bit.
What is their response like, knowing that their mom's a part of something so amazing?
um, at first they couldn't believe it. And then when I actually offered them evidence that this was happening, they were super excited. And maybe them and my husband are the biggest supporters. They really, I think for them is realizing that everything is possible. If your mom does it, it must be true. So
Well, it sets like an example for them, knowing that like my mom was able to accomplish this, and maybe I can push to new heights when I'm able to.
that's true. But I have to tell you that there are three amazing individuals, and they surprise me every day with what they can do. So I'm also inspired by them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously you set the example and they're following in your footsteps. So I guess my last question is if you could pass on any knowledge to the general public regarding biology, what would that be?
Well, the general knowledge would be plants are important. Let's not underestimate them. Let's value them. They have so much to offer to us. We breathe oxygen thanks to them. We eat food thanks to them. So let's respect them, and let's make sure that we safeguard the resources that plants need to continue to thrive, because if they thrive, we do too.
Absolutely. Do you guys have social media? Like, does your lab have social media, or is there anywhere that the audience could follow along your guys' journey?
Yes, I think we are present everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. And of course, we are on the Michigan State website. And if anybody has questions, please feel free to shoot me an email. I'm on the MSU website, and it's very easy to reach me.
Yeah, I was kind of wowed at the fact that you guys responded, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. So thanks again for doing this. This was a pleasure and an honor for me to be able to sit down and talk with you.
Thank you, David. This was fantastic. Thanks for the opportunity to explain our research to your listeners.
Absolutely, and I hope to have you back when we know more.
Absolutely. Always happy to help.
All right, thank you.
Okay, take care, David.
You too.
Bye.